Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys for another episode of what is the Arsenal News Show. Join you every morning at 8 a.m. UK time, bringing you all the latest Arsenal news, views and transfer updates. Thank you so much, as always, for making us a part of your morning routines. Hope you're doing good and well. Those joining us in the chat box, thank you. Penny Wayne says you can't buy happiness, but you can buy ice cream, and that's basically the same thing. Jose, good morning to you, to NSW, to David. Good morning to Carl. Good morning to Amira, Stephen, Stevie, Johnny, Chris, Matt G, Marcus. Hope you're doing well. Paul, we've got James, we've got Stephen and Matt, and Gooner, Jake, Martin, Pat, Gunner Dude, Stuart, Clincy, and plenty more of you guys as well. Thank you so much, as always, for tuning in. First things first, if you've not watched the Highbury Squad show yesterday, do it. You will be rewarded with one of the best moments in Arsenal YouTube history, in my opinion. Make sure you go and do it. And also, I joined Sophie and Lee and Dan on yesterday's Lead Judges TV show. So if you've not yet watched that, please make sure you tune over there as well. But without further ado, if you could drop a like on the video, if you are indeed enjoying the show, or maybe even if you're not, and if you are new, hit the subscribe button as well and join the TGT family. Right, let's go into our stories for the day, shall we? We start off with yesterday's Premier League result as Newcastle secured Champions League football, with Leicester City giving themselves hope this season with a draw at Newcastle. It was a result that probably benefited both sides the most as it possibly could, other than obviously Leicester winning. But going to Newcastle and getting anything from that game is always going to be appreciated. Leicester, of course, continue and I think have West Ham on the last day of the season. They do, at least, and you'd hope that they'd be able to try and get a result in that home game to keep themselves afloat on the last day. Everton and, of course, Leeds United also have home games against Bournemouth and Spurs, respectively. But Newcastle, getting into the Champions League, have really taken advantage of sides like Spurs, Liverpool, Chelsea being particularly poor this season, and have really elevated themselves with some great football. And most of all, a really good defence. They've conceded, I think, the fewest goals in the Premier League this campaign, and that defence has led them to where they are in the table. And they are going to be, a significant force again next season if they look to spend more money and the league becomes significantly tougher, as always. But every year we say the words that the league is going to get tougher. And yet after years and years and years of the league getting tougher and tougher and tougher, Arsenal have only risen up the table and moved forwards toward a title challenge. So if there's one thing that should encourage you for the future, it certainly is that. Now, Juventus have been deducted 10 points from their Serie A tally, which has put them down into 7th place in the league. They then lost 4-1 against Empoli last night, which has created a good opportunity for Arsenal, because with Juventus out of those European Champions League places, it would mean, based upon their coefficients, that they would indeed be involved in a higher pot. They would have been in pot 3, but they are moving instead, it seems, what it looks to be at this stage, into pot 2. So if Juventus lose in their last, or drop points in their last 2 games against AC Milan and against, I think the last game, or rather, if AC Milan pick up points against Juventus, or if they win against Verona, Juventus would be unable to get into the top 4. There are obviously other teams involved in the race as well, and a lot can still go against them. But the likelihood is now is that Juventus will probably be without Champions League football this season, if indeed the points tally is it's continued to be reinstated. It was taken away, it was added, it was taken away again. So who knows what's going to happen? But Juventus, it seems, will not be in Champions League football next season, which means that Arsenal will most likely be in pot 2, which is good news for Arsenal's Champions League hopes for the following campaign. Now, talks have supposedly taken place between Ben White and Gareth Southgate about potentially returning to the England national side. England will, of course, have some fixtures at the end of this season. And Ben White left the World Cup camp in the winter in Qatar. All the reasons behind that still very much were behind the scenes and never really came out or were confirmed. And I'm certainly not going to speculate about them here. But what is good is to see Ben White being given the opportunity to reintegrate back into the group. And he certainly earned that with his performances this season. Now, moving on to transfers, and there's quite a few that we need to discuss in today's show. David Ornstein of The Athletic reporting yesterday that Arsenal do indeed hold an interest in Ajax midfielder Mohamed Kudus, the Ghanaian international, of course, teammate of Thomas Partey on an international level. And I think that when it comes down to a player like Kudus, he is probably further down the list than some of the priority targets that we'll talk about shortly. But a versatile player that can play in a number of positions, scores goals, creates goals, and certainly has risen to a good level and standing in European football at Ajax. Would he be a good pick for Arsenal? Potentially. Would he be above some of the other picks on the list? Not for me. I would prefer to see Mason Mount arrive, and we'll talk about him very shortly. Speaking of midfielders, though, Declan Rice, as we know, remains Arsenal's number one target. But according to a number of reports, Manchester City and Bayern Munich are said to be lurking around the race. However, Arsenal, as I've said there, do indeed remain favourites. There's discussions about when a bid will come in. Arsenal want to be respectful, it is said, according to Fabrizio Romano, of that UEFA Conference League final that takes place after the end of the season. I think it's something like the 7th of June, around that date, I think, the final is taking place. So once that's done, once West Ham have seen the end of their season completed, Arsenal, you can expect, will indeed progress with a bid for the player that they see as their number one target for the transfer window. And his best friend, as I've already mentioned, Mason Mount. The interest is very strong indeed in the Chelsea attacking midfielder. Liverpool at the moment said to be leading the race still for Mason Mount, but Arsenal's interest is concrete. And perhaps if Arsenal are able to get hold of Declan Rice, that would enable them to get hold of Mason Mount as well. For me, I would rather go and pick up Mount than Mohamed Kudus for me, because I think that the Premier League experience, the homegrown aspect of work as well, and I think that he's shown at a European level, winning the Champions League and being a starter in that Chelsea side for so long, I think would be a great benefit to Arsenal as well. I like the player. I know people, I think, underrate Mason Mount quite significantly and are not that excited about potentially signing him. I think he's a fantastic player, and I've talked about him for those that have watched the channel for some time as a player that I've begrudgingly liked and been frustrated that he's at Chelsea. So to see him at Arsenal, I think I would certainly be behind the idea of. Moises Caicedo, however, despite the fact that there is strong interest in the player, seems to be difficult to imagine Arsenal getting hold of a 70/80 million pound plus midfielder on top of potentially getting hold of Declan Rice. It just seems too expensive for Arsenal to pull off if indeed they have a certain amount of budget. Like that is going to cost you close to 200 million to get both players. And I'm just not sure I see that happening. And because of that, if Arsenal don't get Rice, I imagine they'll try to move for Caicedo. But if they do get Rice, it makes sense that they are interested, according to David Ornstein, in pushing for Ilkay Gundogan of Manchester City on a free transfer. This was not only reported by The Athletic, but then confirmed by a number of other outlets. It is indeed the case that Arsenal are pushing for this player, and Mikel Arteta is very, very keen on signing him up to a free potential 2-year contract. Manchester City do still want to keep Gundogan, and Barcelona are also very interested in the German international. I think this would be a great signing for Arsenal to bring in for the next 2 years. You know, if Granit Xhaka is moving on, you're losing one of your most experienced heads in the team, and you're bringing in a title winner and the captain of the side that just battered Arsenal in the end in terms of the Premier League title race. Would be a huge asset, I think, to the team. If Arsenal get hold of Rice and Gundogan, adding that to the existing group, plus a creative midfielder, you've got a great group and core of players in that team to take you into next season and into Champions League football as well. I think it's a no-brainer. I just don't think there's any downsides to Gundogan at all. People talk about his age, but you know, based upon how he's been performing at the end of this season, I mean, doesn't look a player that's 32 in any shape or form. And as they say, age is just a number sometimes. I look at performances rather than what the number on the screen is in terms of signing a player like Gundogan. Yes, age comes into a factor in certain debates for certain players in certain positions, but particularly for midfield, I think Arsenal can afford to bring in some experience with, of course, Granit Xhaka moving on. And yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Oh, hold on. Seems to be an issue with the microphone. Hold on 2 seconds. I don't know what's going on. It's happening yesterday. Hopefully that's back. I don't know what's going on or why this happens, but for some reason the microphone's going a little bit strange recently. I'm hoping that it's sorted out and you can hear me once again. Do let me know if it changes. But yes, it's good timing that happened then and not during the next section. Perhaps if my microphone had invested in NordVPN, it wouldn't have had that issue going on. But thank you to NordVPN, as always, for the sponsorship that brings you that safety and security that you need online to secure yourself all of the benefits that a VPN can bring. The safety and security online is great if you're surfing the net and you want that peace of mind that you're being protected and that no one's peeping into what you're doing. It also gives you the ability to change your geolocation, so you can change your laptop, your tablet, or your phone to somewhere else in the world and access perhaps shows that you aren't able to watch in the country of origin that you're based in. So massively recommend getting hold of that link in the description. As always, nordvpn.com/Gooner to get involved with the latest sponsorship. In terms of football prizes, there is a brand new competition available as well. Martin Odegaard's shirt is available courtesy of Football Prizes. There is 149 tickets that have gone on sale, and I can tell you that already 72 of them in 12 hours have gone. You're going to have to be quick if you want to get involved with this, and there is an early bird price special to get involved with for the next couple hours or so at least. Not only that, but you can win a Thomas Partey signed Arsenal shirt and plenty of Football Prizes site credit as well. Just by entering the competition, it enters you into those mini competitions as well. Thank you to Football Prizes, as always, for helping support the channel. Let's go to part two, and fingers crossed the microphone can stay well attached and well connected. Not sure what's going on. Maybe it's the the drivers in the laptop. Hopefully we don't have an issue with it again. Right, part two coming up right after this. Right then, let's go into the chat box. Do give me a shout out if indeed things start going on. I might have to be at the bottom of the chat box just so I know I'm being updated if things are going fine, but I'll try and catch up on some of the other ones first. James says, if Reece Nelson was to depart, would you consider Jadon Sancho? Arteta Statly likes English presence, and with White, Rice, Xhaka, Mount Smith Rowe, Ramsdale, it could provide competition to the above. I don't know why Manchester United would sell to Arsenal. I don't know how on earth you justify paying as much as what they would probably expect for Jadon Sancho. I think there are better options ultimately that Arsenal can get that don't have the level of risk factor. You know, I'd rather sign, say, a Marco Asensio on a free than having to invest a significant amount of money in what it would take to get Jadon Sancho. So for me, I'd rather look elsewhere. Valeria says, how is being in a group with Real Madrid and Bayern a good thing? I don't get it. Helps me understand. What are your thoughts? So yeah, no problem. I can help you understand the pot system. So being in pot two, basically what this means, Valeria, for those that don't understand, is these are the teams that you actually can't face. So when being in pot two, it means we can't get drawn against Bayern Munich, Real Madrid, Man United, Inter Milan, Atletico, RB Leipzig, and Porto. They're the teams that you're in a pot with. So you'll be drawn against a team from pot one, a team from pot three, and a team from pot four. That's how it will work. So we will get in pot one, if indeed these are the teams, and, you know, it's still to be decided between Roma and Sevilla, who will be in pot one. But we will get one of those 8 teams in our group. We will then get drawn for pot 2 if Juventus don't indeed make the top 4 places before the end of the season. We'll then get a team from one of those 8 in pot 3, of course, that aren't English. And we'll get one of those teams from pot 4 also that, again, that aren't English if there are indeed. And that goes for pot 1 as well. We can't get Man City, for instance, from pot 1 in our group stage. But we could get Roma or Sevilla. We could get Barca, Napoli, Borussia Dortmund, PSG, Benfica final. It is very, very good indeed that we are not in pot 3. Because those pot 2 teams, you know, that would have been a nightmare. You could have got Real Madrid, could have got Bayern Munich. You know, very difficult indeed if you're in anything other than pot 2. So, yes, I think it's a very, very good thing indeed that we are indeed in pot 2. And hopefully that will lead us to have a relatively successful time in our group. But we'll have to wait and see. Let's go to Mr. Robots, which is a fantastic series, Josh, if you've not yet watched it. I know not many players made a huge impact in the Prem apart from a handful. I've been to Amsterdam to watch this Kudus guy play, and he's a switch army knife with kind of a winger cam, centre mid, centre forward, can do lots of jobs. I hear what you're saying. It's only a handful, you're right, have made an impact from the Eredivisie. You think about Luis Suarez, for instance, being one of them, but a lot have struggled. He's a really, really good player. But I just don't I just think there are better options available to Arsenal than signing Mohamed Kudus. But if he was to come in, he'd still be an asset. It's a case of like just saying, I prefer someone else. Doesn't mean that I don't think that he's a good player. Let's go to Marcus says, so who is going and how much money do you think we'll get from sales? Tomorrow's show, you can tell me how much you would spend. We are going to be doing a show, Marcus, dedicated to kind of the ins and the outs. So don't worry, that is certainly coming. So don't worry, we will indeed be looking to bring that in and get that done at some stage. Let's go to Momar says, do you think that Partey can recover his form next season? I'm hopeful that he can. He's not played an end-of-season run for the last 2 seasons because he's been injured for both of them. And I think bringing in someone that can rotate with him is going to allow him to be a little bit fitter, more refreshed, and hopefully more available for those games. And Rice will certainly enable us to do that. Fahim says, do you think Rice would become the number 6 and Partey could become a rotational option next season? I think Partey's minutes need to go down. I agree with you. I think you look at Man City, they've rotated Rodri out of the side in certain games. They've given him rests. I think having someone that can compete with Partey, can play with Partey, I think Rice can do both jobs, gives us a lot of options in the team. Let's go to Lewis says City's experienced winners are aging. Does getting Gundogan force City to rebuild sooner? Maybe they go for Caicedo. Think we have to secure both young midfielders so all of our players hit prime as City lose theirs. Lewis, I think unfortunately, I get where your theory is coming from. They lose Gundogan, that makes them go for a younger player sooner. I think they're already going to be planning on doing that. I don't think it matters what Arsenal do. Yes, they could keep Gundogan for next season. I still think they'd be looking to sign a centre midfielder. That's why they're interested in Declan Rice at the same time. So no, I don't think it changes anything. I don't think us going for Gundogan will stop them from going and refurbing their team. They're always going to be looking to get a younger squad and change it because they are the best recruiters in the league. Take the political, or not in political, but the allegations out of things. But in terms of who they do recruit, it's got them to a position where they're winning so many titles consistently. So it doesn't really matter what we do and if we sign Gundogan or not. They're always going to be planning ahead. They're always going to be trying at least to bring the right players in at the right times. Let's go to Rich says, Tom, there is a good midfielder named Alex Scott from Bristol City. 2 seasons ago, he was playing in Tier 8 in Guernsey. And this season was named in the Championship Young Player of the Season, and he's only 19. What are your thoughts, Rich? I don't know much about him. I know he was in the Championship team of the season. But Arsenal should always be looking for young talent, should always be looking in the lower leagues as well, and shouldn't be putting that off. I know they've brought scouts in the last couple of years that have been dedicated to looking at the leagues within England. So I'm sure they'll be very aware of him. And if he's indeed deemed good enough, maybe they will move for someone like Alex Scott. But he's certainly someone that I don't know if he's on the radar at the moment for the club. Olu says, hey, Tom, did you see Pep's comment about playing defenders that are good in one-on-one and ditching those who aren't? One for us to ponder. I think it's one for us that we've done. Think about who played left-back against Liverpool this season. Mikel Arteta is already doing that. Think about who played right-back all of this season. We are using that system of playing what Pep has done himself and using Ake. We've done it ourselves. You think about where Tomiyasu played against Liverpool. So you have to consider the fact that I think that we are already doing that and probably will continue to do that into the future. Carl says, Tom, more about you. Roughly how many of the 92 grounds have you been to? Would you say it's been easier or harder since you have been a journalist? On the 92 grounds, I struggle to give you the number, but I went to pretty much all the away games this season, bar a few. The London ones like Spurs and Chelsea, I didn't go to. I didn't go to Wolves. Are there any others I didn't go to? I think I went to every single other one. I didn't go to Bournemouth. So yeah, pretty much everything bar those. So any of those Premier League teams I've been to. Lower league sides. I've been to a couple of games with the in-laws family to watch Charlton play. We went to Bristol City's ground. We went to Forest. We're in the lower leagues, but now I've seen Arsenal play there too a number of times. There's quite a few, to be fair, but I couldn't give you a number, Carl. It'd be difficult. And in terms of would you say it's been easier or harder since you have been a journalist? To go to games, obviously way easier because I'm accredited, so they get me in. But in terms of the job and following Arsenal, there are pros and cons. I don't take the job for granted. There's a lot of benefits to this job and what I do. But also at the same time, there are, no job is perfect. There are certainly drawbacks. There are certainly things that make your job trickier. And there are challenges that you need to overcome. And the sphere is something to navigate that I've never, ever encountered before on a social level. But it's a great experience and job. And I wouldn't rather be doing anything else. So yeah, there are lots of pros and cons with any job, but I'm sure, just like Alexander Zinchenko, that the pros certainly outweigh the cons. Viju says, hey, Tom, if Arteta cannot take Smith Rowe to the next level, wasn't Project Youth a load of PR? Smith Rowe's injury is old news because he had been bad for a while. Oh, sorry, he had been for a while. No, not at all, Viju. I mean, look at the two players that are in the team of the season in the wide areas for Arsenal. It's Gabriel Martinelli and it's Bukayo Saka. And look who our captain is right now, and one is going to win, I think, the Premier League Young Player of the Year maybe behind Erling. I don't know if he wins the Young Player of the Year, but he'll win the Player of the Year. But Odegaard could be in there as Young Player of the Year as well. So, no, not a load of PR. Certainly a massive, massive success. Arsenal have only progressed with this young team and look to continue to do so as well. I don't think Smith Rowe changes things at all. The player that's replaced him is Martinelli and Odegaard, who again are both two young players. Let's go to next. It says, what improvements would you like to see Arteta make going into next season? 5 signings, improvement in in-game management and substitutions and team selection, and moving some of the key players out, including making significantly better profits on players as well. Let's go to Penny Ween says, would you be comfortable with artificial intelligence refereeing games? I'm always interested in improving anything if indeed the improvement outweighs in terms of the positives that it brings what we've got existing. But there is a wariness I have on AI. I am very, very aware that in the journalistic world as well, there is always a threat of AI as well from my job's perspective. So it can't obviously do a show in terms of what I'm saying and the emotion and the passion and the response to fans and thought process behind certain and debate and things like that, or changing its mind, I suppose, or maybe it can, maybe I'm underestimating it. But, I think there are benefits to it, but certainly there are drawbacks as well. Again, just like with anything. Any marriage tips, says Mel? Honestly, nothing's changed for me since I got married. It was the same before, same post. Nothing has changed, and we were together for nearly 10 years before we get married. So no, I don't. Whatever's been successful for you, Mel, in getting to the stage of getting married, continue to do what you're doing. Continue to do what you are doing. Let's go to in terms of a manager, what you can do better. I did mention in-game management, team selection, substitutions. They are the key things that he needs to look to. Let's go to Daniel says, looks like as the TTC Hitman has a busy day finding you. Buttons, over 600 people watching, and yet the like button has not been pressed enough times. Make sure if you haven't pressed that like button, you do so. Otherwise, Daniel is coming for you. Gooner Jake says, Tom, what other midfield options are there if we fail with our targets? I mean, Martin Zubimendi is one. I like Mikel Moreno as well at Real Sociedad. Both two Real Sociedad players are very, very good indeed. And Arsenal do have an interest in Zubimendi. Beyond that, though, we've got a lot of the existing targets we have. Rice, Caicedo, Gundogan, Zubimendi. We have a lot there. So it would take a lot to go past plan D. And you'd hope that Arsenal would be moving past plan D at all. Sean says, Tom, that's mad. You've been in a relationship since you were 19. Since I was 17, I've been in this current relationship. I turned 18 2 months into my relationship with my other half. And we've been together ever since. Very long time indeed. Made it through uni at different universities, through different jobs. And now, now we're married. Crazy scenes. It shows you anyone can do it. Just never really had an interest in going anywhere else. It's been a great 10 years, and I hope it's going to be a great however many more. Let's go to Ashton says, I'm late. Can we restart, Tom? Summarize. No. Rewind. Just rewind, mate. We are nearing the end. I'm going to take a few more questions. Yomi says, Tom is deliberately ignoring my questions. I mean, I'm not. Because I just read your comment. Honestly, I know I have to say this a lot, but there's 600, there's nearly 700 of you guys watching in here, and some people are like, you never answer my questions. And it's genuinely just an accident if I don't. There is so many of you. And I just sometimes, unfortunately, miss. Law of averages says eventually I'm going to get to one of your questions. But unfortunately, yeah, I'm always going to miss some. So stop moaning. That's what I'm saying. Stop moaning. Eventually, I'll get to them. Lebega says, hey, Tom, if there is any possibility of bringing in Caicedo, Rice, and Gundogan or Cancelo, I think that the idea would be behind bringing in two midfielders. So two of Rice, Caicedo, Gundogan, Zubimendi, maybe Mount, he's more of an attacking mid player, but it depends how much money we've got available to us. I don't know. I don't know if we're going to be able to bring in more than two. I just think it's going to be two, Lebega, to be honest. I'd be surprised if it was more than that. Josh says, is Arsenal still in for the Brazilian striker Vitor Roque? There was genuine interest in the player. I don't know if that's gone. Barcelona also very interested, but their finances make that deal difficult. Let's see. But Arsenal's interest is more so into midfield and defence than it is in the forward line. Suggestions that Arsenal want a forward are certainly real. Like, there are interests in forwards, but the priority for Arsenal is the midfield and the defence this summer more so than the forward line. They hope to get it all, but it might not be feasible. But the priority is midfield and defence. Let's go to Valeria says, hey, Tom, the reason Mikel has not been flexible enough is because he doesn't trust the fringe players. We can be more critical next season with a lot more players. What are your thoughts? No, I absolutely agree with you. That's where I'm at on the situation. I think we're going to end the show there. Thank you so much, guys, for tuning in. Really appreciate your time, as always. Do indeed drop a like on the video. Apologies for the slight robotic nature that the microphone went into. I'm going to have a look at that. Maybe I have to get a new cable or something. But that's what's good about this microphone as opposed to my old microphone. Is the old microphone's cable was like attached to the microphone. This one is just detachable. So in theory, I should just be able to get a new cable and it should be fine. But who knows? You'll have to let me know if there's any issues in the future. But hopefully it is going to be okay. But thank you for listening. Really appreciate your time. Drop a like, subscribe. I'll be back, obviously, on the Arsenal way in a little bit. I might be doing a show this evening. I might not. I don't know. I do want to do another phone-in show, kind of just not light-hearted, but I really want to do a phone-in show where I kind of just sit and wait for the Arteta outs to come and see if they indeed arrive. Because I just think it'd be funny. That would be quite funny because they never do. So it could be where we just have a chat for like an hour and see if any Arteta outs turn up. That would be quite funny. But thank you, everybody. I really appreciate your time as always. And yeah, it's been great to speak to you. Have a fantastic Tuesday, and I hope you stay safe and stay well. And as always, up the Arsenal.